If the alien sees us, we're done for. It's okay, I have an idea.
Yeah. Uh-oh. Hello and welcome back to Penguin's Horror Extravaganza. And today we'll be taking a look at a game that aimed to spark interest in an old film franchise. A game that had to deal with the shadow left by another critically panned project. A little game called Alien Isolation. Developed by Creative Assembly and published by Sega, Creative Assembly was founded by Tim Ansel in 1987. Ansel himself was not new to the world of gaming, as he had started his career back in 1965, working on games for the Amstrad CPC, Commodore 64, and Atari systems. In the early years, Creative Assembly worked on porting games from Amiga to DOS. In 1993, Creative Assembly was able to work with Electronic Arts under their EA Sports label, working on the early FIFA games. In 1999, with the backing of EA, Creative Assembly would try their hand at an original title, and this title was Shogun Total War, a turn-based strategy game mixed with real-time tactics. This game was set during the Sengoku period in feudal Japan. Shogun Total War was released in 2000, with the Mongol Invasion expansion being released in 2001. The game was met with critical acclaim. After this, Creative Assembly would part ways with Electronic Arts and end up with Activision for publishing and distribution. In 2001, the sequel to Shogun was announced, this being Medieval Total War, this new entry being set during the medieval period. Medieval Total War aimed to be larger in scope from Shogun, and was released in 2002. It went on to win multiple awards and was named Top Game of 2002 by PC Gamer. The Viking Invasion expansion for Medieval Total War was released in 2003. The third title in the Total War series was announced in 2003, Rome Total War. This entry was set during the rise of the Roman Empire. This entry was also graced with the new game engine. A neat little side note, the game code for Rome Total War was used in two television programs, those being BBC's Time Commanders and History Channel's Decisive Battle. As Creative Assembly is more or less a freelance agent, there was some speculation that Activision would buy the studio, a studio that had 3 highly positively received titles. However, this was not meant to be, but it would be Sega that would swoop in with the save. In 2005, Sega had announced they had made an acquisition deal with Creative Assembly, even obtaining the rights for Rome Total War from Activision. The pair would go on to release Spartan Total War in 2005. Spartan Total War was very different from the previous entries in the Total War franchise, as this one was more in the style of a hack and slash game. Spartan Total War was released for Xbox, PlayStation 2, and GameCube. Reception for the game was mixed, being praised for the number of units on screen at a time, but was marred for its repetitive gameplay. A fun little tidbit about me. Years ago when I was first playing through Spartan Total War, I had also discovered the 2004 album Amphetamine by English metal band Cradle of Filth. So while hacking and slashing away, I was listening to that album non-stop. So now, I forever associate that game with that album. So after the acquisition by Sega, a few things happened, one being the departure of Tim Ansel from Creative Assembly. In an article at Eurogamer, Ansel stated, "I don't blame them at all for getting rid of me, because at the time I was about as much use as a chocolate teapot. I was spent, I was really spent, I was in a dark place. It was 18 years of my life, and it was my entire life, you know what I mean? I'd been working fucking hard, under a lot of stress for 18 years, and it just got stressier and stressier the bigger it got." And the second thing was the announcement of a new entry in the Total War franchise, that title being Medieval 2 Total War. And despite having a 2 in the title, this entry was a remake of the original Medieval Total War, using new assets and game engine from Rome Total War. An expansion titled Kingdoms was released in 2007, and both were met with positive reception. In 2007, a few more projects were announced, those being Viking Battle for Asgard, a hack and slash game in the vein of Spartan Total War, and had a focus on Norse mythology. The other title was Empire Total War. This entry was set in the 18th and 19th century, and like Medieval Total War, was graced with the new game engine. This game also marked the 5th entry in the Total War series. Empire Total War was released in 2009, was met with high praise, selling double the units of Medieval 2 Total War and Rome Total War. Though Empire held several issues with the game, there were several patches released to remedy said issues. However, they weren't able to fix all the issues before support was pulled for the game. This little event had some question Sega's influence on Creative Assembly as a whole. Another title was Stormrise. This, unlike its predecessors, was set to a science fiction backdrop. Stormrise was developed for both PC and consoles, and was released in 2009. Stormrise was met with negative reviews due to broken pathfinding and a flawed control scheme. as it was designed to have the interface mesh with console players. In 2012, it was announced that there would be a partnership between Games Workshop and Creative Assembly. Games Workshop is known for their miniatures and the creation of Warhammer and Warhammer 40k. The two will go on to work together to bring forth several Warhammer games. In 2013, Sega Studios Australia, formerly Creative Assembly Australia, was to be shut down. This studio had worked on porting the first 3 Sonic the Hedgehog games, as well as Sonic and Knuckle games, to the Sonic Classic Collection. In that same year, Total War Rome 2 was released. This entry used the updated Warscape engine. Unfortunately, the engine had several technical issues. It was so bad that Michael Simpson, the creative director of Creative Assembly, had to issue a public apology for the state of the game. In the following months, there were several patches released to fix most of the issues. In the subsequent years, Creative Assembly would continue to add to their catalog, including titles like Total War Attila, Total War Warhammer, Halo Wars 2, Total War Warhammer 2, Total War Saga Thrones of Britannia, Total War 3 Kingdoms, Total War Saga Troy, Total War Warhammer 3, and finally Total War Pharaoh, which was their most recent release coming out this year. So, games based on the Alien franchise weren't always the best. Some were fine, while others not so much. The idea behind the more recent games had started when Sega had attained the rights to Alien. Creative Assembly had pitched an idea to Sega about the possibility of a new Alien game, but due to the colossal failure that was Alien's Colonial Marines, it had left a sour taste in Sega's mouth, leading them to be hesitant to pursue such a project. Unbeknownst to Sega, Creative Assembly had put together a short demo for what they envisioned for a new Alien game. They had used the same engine that was used in Viking Battle for Asgard. The demo was then shown to the higher-ups, and the project was approved. Due to the backlash from how Alien's Colonial Marines was handled in regards to what was shown versus actual gameplay, Creative Assembly aimed for anything that was shown was strictly from the game itself. While in development, Alien Isolation was planned to be a third-person horror game, but the developers felt that the players couldn't really feel the world in this perspective, so they decided to go with first-person. Creative Assembly wanted to make this new project survivor horror, as most of the other games set in the franchise's universe tended to be more action-based. But due to Creative Assembly's inexperience with survival horror games, there were more people hired on from other studios to help out with the project. The team had grown from a small group to a group of 100 people. The tone of the game was fashioned more around the first Alien film. Fox had provided 3 terabytes of original production material, which included costume photography, concept art, set designs, behind-the-scene photos, videos, and original sound effects recordings. The team took a close look at the first film to try and get the look and feel of the game just right. The same was done for the film's soundtrack. The developers also met with the editor of the original film, Terry Rawlings, to gain more insight for the game. Instead of the usual shiny high-tech look, the designers decided to go with the lo-fi tech look from the original film. The lo-fi tech design also extended the gameplay. An example would be the hacking tool. This had the look of an old portable television. Even the computers in the game were big blocky units, unlike the sleek displays in other science fiction properties. Artist John McClellan stated, "We had this rule. If a prop couldn't be made in '79 with the things they had around, then we wouldn't make it either." Creative Assembly wanted the story of Alien Isolation to closely relate to the film. As a result, the game would tell a story that would take place 15 years after the first film, and players would take control of Ellen Ripley's daughter, Amanda. Sigourney Weaver agreed to reprise her role as Ellen as small voicing roles. Along with Weaver, Tom Skerritt, Victoria Cartwright, editing Penguin here. I meant to say Veronica. I don't know where the hell I got Victoria from. Harry Dean Stanton and Yaphet Kotto also reprised their roles in a DLC add-on for the game. There was a bit of a setback in development, as an update occurred 6 months in, and though it did bring new tools to help a workflow, it did lead to previous work being discarded, cutting into development time for the team. The Alien was designed to look similar to the original design from H.E. Geiger, editing Penguin again. It's H.R. Geiger. I don't know why I said H.E., it's not even like that on my script. The Alien's AI was programmed with a complex set of behaviors that will unlock over time as the player encounters it. This was done to create the illusion that the alien was learning from the interactions with the player. Game designer Gary Napper stated, "We needed something that would be different every time you played it. You're going to die a lot, which means restarting a lot. And if the alien was scripted, you'd see the same behavior. That makes the alien become predictable, and a lot less scary." There was a mechanic where the player was able to craft weapons, but the idea was scrapped. Director Alistair Hope stated, "We thought about what people would do in order to survive. We explored different ideas, and one of them was fashioning weapons to defend yourself. That was quite early on, but we realized that this game isn't really about pulling the trigger. There was another feature that was cut, that being the acidic blood the aliens from the films usually possessed. Due to the very poor reception of Alien Colonial Marines, Sega had conducted a review on Alien Isolation's development, resulting in a rewrite of the game's story. This had led to the previous cutscenes that were done by Axis Animation to be cut, and the animations were reworked to fit the new story. Alien Isolation was first unveiled in 2011 when UK Government Minister Ed Valzay visited Creative Assembly and revealed on social media that the studio was hiring for a new Alien game. Although the mess that was Alien Colonial Marines did have a negative reputation, it actually didn't affect Alien Isolation all too much. In fact, the fanbase of the Alien franchise were ecstatic for a new game. Alien Isolation had a demo for journalists to play in E3 2014. It was well received. A VR version of the game was also shown off. Alien Isolation was released for October 6, 2014 for PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, Windows, Xbox 360, and Xbox One, on October 28, 2015 for Mac, and on September 29, 2015 for Linux. There were even ports for the Nintendo Switch, Android, and iOS in later years. Reception for Alien Isolation was pretty favorable, getting a 79 on Metacritic. It was praised for the lighting and the overall design. It also received PC Gamer's Game of the Year 2014, Best Audio at the 15th Game Developers Choice Awards, and also got 4 awards in the 14th National Academy of Video Game Trade Reviewers. It was also ranked first in the Daily Telegraph's 25 Best Games of 2014, also being ranked 6 on Kotaku's list of 10 best horror games. And with that, let's take a look at today's game.
Ripley?
Set 15 years after the first film, Amanda Ripley, daughter of Ellen Ripley, learns of a flight recorder of the Nostromo has been located. The Nostromo was a ship that Ellen Ripley was aboard when she went missing. Amanda heads to Sevastopol Station, where the recorder is now located, to find some answers about her mother's disappearance, and hopefully some closure. But as she arrives, she learns that the station is under lockdown, and that there's a terrifying creature lurking in the shadows. Now she has to do what she can to escape the station with her life. Alien Isolation is a first-person survival horror game. Unlike the last game we took a look at, the name of the game here is Running and Hiding. But unlike Fiona, Amanda has a few tricks up her sleeve to keep the baddies at bay. She has a plethora of items and shoot bangs that will aid in her escape. She has a revolver. This is the first firearm Amanda will get her hands on. It's good old reliable. It can be used to make short work of other human enemies, but it does take quite a few shots to take out any pesky androids. There's the shotgun. This one makes very short work of almost anything put in front of its barrel. There's a bolt gun. This is a powerful makeshift weapon. It will shoot industrial bolts at its targets. A thing to note that it does take some time for her to fully charge up. And finally, there's a flamethrower. This bad boy is very special, not only because it's a goddamn flamethrower, but because it's one of the few weapons that Amanda can use to fend off the alien. Now, a thing to note, the flamethrower only gives Amanda breathing room from the alien, and will not kill it outright. But also, the alien will grow more resilient to the flamethrower the more it's used, so keep that in mind and use in moderation. Unlike me. Since Amanda is a smart cookie, she can pick up blueprints and craft items to help her keep death at bay, and later on pick up upgraded blueprints as well. She can craft an EMP mine. This one does nothing to both alien and human enemies, but it does work well against androids. This will give Amanda enough time to run away. There's a pipe bomb. This can clear out any group of enemies. It can also be used to keep the alien at arm's length. There's a Molotov. Given that this is a fire-based weapon, it is very effective against the alien. It's always good to keep a few of these in your inventory. There's a smoke bomb. This gives Amanda a smoke stream she can use to escape a tough encounter. There's a noisemaker. Once thrown, this will draw enemies away from Amanda. And finally, a flashbang. This one can be used to blind androids and humans. This too will give Amanda some time to run away or fight. Now Amanda has some melee options to take down her foes. There's the maintenance jack. This will let Amanda bludgeon enemies that get too close. There's the stun baton. This can be used to stun enemies, giving Amanda some time to run away or just run up and throw hands. But keep in mind, Amanda can also be taken out in a few hits. There are tools that Amanda can use to unlock new areas or help with overall exploration. These tools can be upgraded with pickups that are sprinkled throughout the story, giving Amanda more access to locked off areas. There's the maintenance jack. It's not only used to beat people like they owe you money, but it can be used to unlock door braces. There's a security tuner. This will let Amanda hack doors and terminals. There's the cutting torch. This can be used to cut open blocked off vents. It can be later upgraded to a plasma flame and an ion flame to cut open door panels. There's a gas mask. This lets Amanda cross areas filled with toxic gas. And finally, there's the motion tracker, the iconic item from the films. This will let Amanda see the locations of nearby enemies. but the tracker does glitch out while in vents, so she can't always rely on it, and the beeping can be heard if enemy being tracked is too close. Amanda can also craft medkits to regain lost health, but a thing to note that each crafted item does use resources, making the player make a choice between crafting a pipe bomb or saving those resources for another potential item later on. Amanda does have access to a flashlight and flares to light up dark areas, though the flashlight does use batteries that need to be manually changed out, and there were times where I completely forgot about this and ended up running around in darkness. Amanda can use hiding spots to avoid detection from enemies, but if any enemy sees Amanda entering her hiding spot, they will just yank her out of it. Now, Amanda is tough, but she isn't a tank that can take Doomslayer levels of damage. She can be taken out with a few good hits from enemies or straight out killed by others, so stealth will almost always be your best option when dealing with enemies. There are only 3 types of enemies. Technically there are 4, but that enemy appears in the spoiler section of the game. There are human and androids. These are pretty easy to deal with, but the big star of the game is the alien. This mofo will be the biggest threat for most of the game. It will wander around the levels and pop up randomly, and unlike the other enemies, the alien cannot be killed. Amanda can use flame-based weapons to scare it away, but it will always come back after a short while. There aren't really puzzles in Alien Isolation, but there are minigames that do pop up from time to time. Another thing that is an interesting mechanic in the game was saving. Now normally a game will do this pretty quickly, but for Alien Isolation it can take a few seconds to actually save the game, and Amanda can be attacked while this is happening, adding to the horror feel of the game. There is a lot of backstory that can be picked up through audio logs and text files, which is kind of a staple for games of this nature. One of the cool things is that if you're being attacked by humans, the noise can potentially draw on the alien, which will lead to it attacking them instead. But that also means that the alien will now be active in the area for Amanda to deal with. As far as boss fights, there are no real boss fights in the game. They're more like wee bit tougher enemy encounters.
Ripley, are you okay? Ripley?
For a game from 2004, it still looks pretty damn good. The music kicks in when shit gets real, and there are moments where it quiets down to let the atmosphere breathe. There are sounds from the station that will pop up for some good scares, much like Dead Space, and the voice work is well done as well. The environments are very well done, having that same lo-fi look from the films. It was cool seeing little things like posters or notes left around to give the station a lived-in feel. The levels do have some variation to them, which was good, as looking at the same walls and hallways throughout the station would have been a bit of a drag. There is some backtracking to do once you gain some new tools to unlock new areas, so it does give it a bit of a Metroidvania feel. The cutscenes were choppy for me on the PC port, but they do look good running on the PlayStation 4. It was speculated that the PC port just had bad encoding for the cutscenes, but the jitteriness was just something I eventually got used to. On another note, the in-game cutscenes had no issues. The lighting was very well done. It was one of the prides of Creative Assembly. It does very well adding to the ambience of the game. Now I did have some very minor glitches during my run, one involving a ladder and the other where the sound messed up and it sounded like Amanda was sloshing around with water in her pants. But beyond that, the game ran fine. So, all in all, is this a game you should go out and play? Yes. A definite hard yes. Alien Isolation was a fantastic horror game, and it gets a gold star for a movie-based game. The atmosphere was top-notch, very reminiscent of the Dead Space game, so that was something I very much enjoyed. The alien was a definite highlight of the game. It was terrifying at times when the alien would be searching for the player, or when you can hear it banging around in the vents, not knowing if it will pop up out in front of you. Though there were times where a good run would be ruined by some nonsense alien placement, which would lead to some understandable frustration, but getting through a tricky stealth encounter always felt great. Now, there were times where the AI wasn't always the smartest, but that was a bit of a rarity during my gameplay. I did like how the weapons gave a sense of empowerment, but didn't make the player feel too overpowered. Again, this isn't a battle-hardened marine mowing down hordes of demons, or a rookie cop taking on the undead, but it was nice to have options when dealing with some enemies beyond hiding. Now, is this the last we see of our alien fighting engineer? While there was some DLC released after the initial release of the game, 2 of which lets players take control of one of the crew members of the Nostromo set during the events of the first film, there were 2 sequel comics published, Alien Resistance and Aliens Rescue, and a novelization of the game by Keith DeCandido was released, as well as a spin-off game called Alien Blackout was released for mobile that same year. And finally, there is a series adaptation called Alien Isolation, the digital series, was released in 2019, which is just a retelling of the game's story put in a shorter format and some new mocap scenes. If you want to experience the game without the game part, then I say give it a watch, but you'll be robbing yourself of a fun horror game. Now, despite the low sales of the game, Creative Assembly did plan on making a sequel for the game, but it was revealed that most of the original design team were no longer working at the company. Not only that, but they had their hands full working on a new IP, so the sequel idea was scrapped. But many fans of Alien Isolation do hope to one day see a 2 behind that title. If you can get jiggy with that, then I say give this one a try. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a space station to escape from. Hey, welcome to the end of the video. I thank you for making it this far. This was a damn fine and scary game to go through. The next game we'll be taking a look at is probably the scariest game I played in years. But until then, you know what to do, spread the awesome, and I'll see you next time.